Hi, you're watching the commentary track for Wowndars. This is John Dahl, the director.
This is Edward Norton. I played Worm.
Brian Koppelman.
And this is David Levine. We're the writers.
And there's Matt Damon, who was too cool to be here.
Yeah, I think he's in Stade, which is why he couldn't be here.
He's doing the après ski.
Yeah, exactly. And he was going to try to satellite in, but the mochaccino there is really too good. This scene was added because, John, you felt that you wanted to see him gathering the money. I think in the original script we just start with him in an elevator and going to the poker club, and you thought it was important and it was a great touch to see him gathering the money, everything that he had to go play and risk it.
Listen, here's the thing. If you can't spot the sucker in your first half hour at the table, then you are the sucker.
What was the story? Like, what was the genesis of this whole thing? You guys wrote this movie, obviously, out of your own experiences in New York, kind of?
Well, Brian and I, we've been friends since we were about 14, 15 years old. And we'd planned to write a movie together. And I remember getting a phone call one night about 2:30 in the morning, and it was Brian downtown in Manhattan, and he said, "Dave, I just played poker in an underground club, and I lost every dime I had, and it was incredible. We have to write a movie about it."
If you're too careful.
Yeah, I lost $750 playing Texas Hold'em to guys with names very similar to the guys in this movie. This is Teddy KGB, and there was a guy named Eddie KGB.
There was an Eddie KGB, right?
Yeah, a Russian guy. He served in the Russian army, came here, and worked at one of the poker clubs that was in a Veterans of Foreign Wars place. I think it was subsidized by the government, and they had a 24-hour poker game going there 7 days a week. They only got shut down about 4 years ago.
John claims that he said, don't change a word.
Yeah,
Let's just shoot it.
Yeah, that's it to any aspiring screenwriters out there who might want to start out in Hollywood. When a director says to you, "I love it, I'll shoot it as is," you should know that there's probably another 50 drafts in your future before the thing starts.
We didn't, correct me if I'm wrong. I mean, I don't remember changing that much of the movie, did we? I mean, did we?
I mean, I'd have to basically agree with that, although I know that, I remember popping little bits of, we changed little bits of vernacular and
I mean, I think if anything
like that,
is sort of like molded it to the people that were in the parts, right?
That's true. I mean, the spirit of it is intact from the original drafts, but we did change, I think, every scene.
I know, actually, John, to take it out of sort of like the jibe, and the truth is that we spent a month with you basically tightening the script, and we really view that as learning how to do this as professionals. I mean, the scenes just ran too long generally. They sometimes had 2 points instead of one. And yeah, all the lines that are in this movie, except some of like Edward's improvised lines, were in the original.
Except for half of Worms.
Were in the original script. John, you added the line about grabbing the balls that Famke and Edward say. Yeah, you added this line, "Depends on the grip," and then Edward, you added the best, maybe the best line.
But believe
in the
me, I'll
movie.
take credit for my lines when we get there.
Yeah, well, I'd like to see which ones you actually remember as you haven't come up with.
Okay.
Because I really remember.
With that goulash joint on 79th Street. Okay. I understand. Back to battle.
The game in question is No Limit Texas Hold'em. Minimum buy-in, $25,000. A game like this doesn't come together often outside the casinos. The stakes attract rich flounders, and they in turn attract the sharks.
It started as a very small movie. Matt was very unknown to the public at that time. I didn't know what Matt had done before that. I tried to find some things that he'd done. And the only thing I could find on the video store was it Geronimo? Is that,
yeah.
Is that right? And there was that other one with Denzel Washington.
Yeah, he was great in that movie, the Denzel movie.
Courage Under Fire.
But it was like 2 or 3 scenes. And then they had I basically watched a scene from Good Will Hunting, and I thought it was fantastic. So we started from that point, and I literally cast, I mean, we got virtually everybody, the first people that we wanted. But I love the idea that we had this sort of relatively unknown actor and this interesting movie about poker. You know, how many opportunities are you going to get to make a movie about poker? A very sort of simple, you know, interesting movie that basically works, sort of revolves around the characters. And I think I remember saying at one point, you know, it kind of read a little bit like, sort of like The Hustlers. I remember and thinking, you know, I can imagine everybody wanting to have the camera flying all over the table to try to make the poker more interesting than it really was. And, you know,
like doing a color of money on it.
Yeah,
kinda.
exactly. Sort of a very sort of aggressive kind of camera. And I just felt like, you know, the only way the movie would be, you know, entertaining at all to people is if people got into the characters. And you really, you know, and I think I've said that to, remember, I think I said that to you guys, right, Brian and David?
Yeah, right at the top.
Yeah, I think.
And I'm pretty sure I said that to Harvey and everybody at Miramax. I said, you know, the camera's not going to move during the card games. You have to get involved in the, you know, the characters, and that's where the drama has to exist.
Well, yeah, clearly time's proven you out.
Cool.
My guess is Teddy's on a flush draw.
Baron in Terran.
There's my money card, 9 of hearts. I got a full house.
Choose better.
Well, it's interesting that
Teddy makes his flush.
you know, the movie has,
Strong, and I'll beat him with
you
my
know,
nines full over aces.
from when it first came out, and you know, to now, it's like it's really interesting to see. I remember one time I was in New York and I was going out to the airport, and I remember seeing this, like a sticker on the side of the freeway that said poker.com. You know, one of these like like a website, and you know, it's just really interesting how much more, you know, you see Texas Hold'em. It's, you know, it's really
I want
Yeah.
to think that I'm pondering the call, but all I'm really
become quite
thinking
a
about is
phenomenon.
fucking mirage.
I remember one time I was listening to the Howard Stern show, and Howard Stern is talking about how, you know, only wimps play with wild cards when they're playing poker. Or they were having some conversation about it, and I said, you know, God, it's like I'd never call a radio show, but you know, somebody had to call him, and then like, you know, somebody comes in and says, hey, Brian Koppelman's on the phone, the guy that wrote Wowndars, you know, and Brian, do you remember that?
Yeah, well, they were saying a lot of them wanted to play, and yeah, shout out to Mike Selza, who was our poker advisor on the film. It was great. But yeah, I guess a bunch of them, Ralph from the Stern Show, if anyone listens to Stern, wanted to get a game together where he was playing with wild cards.
And everybody got in Howard's face.
Everyone else wanted to play wild cards, and I guess Howard was saying
Nah.
he didn't want to, and I just called in and said to real poker players, you know, and
Wouldn't
they all
play with
love
wild
rounders
cards.
on that show. You know,
Right.
no wild cards, please. And yeah, John, you called or wrote a note right after that saying, I was just about to call, or I wanted to call.
So, you know, because after you've played real cards, like the idea of playing with wild cards is just so offensive.
Yeah.
You'd hate to like lose a hand to like twos or wild or whatever.
What's up?
Down to the felt, Kanish. I lost everything. Man, I lost my case money. I lost my tuition.
Happens to everyone. Time to time, everyone goes bust. You'll be back in the game before you know it.
Man, I'm done. I'm out of it.
They all say that first. Anyway, let me stake you. Standard deal, you know, 50% of your winnings. You lose, it's on me.
I just throw it away.
You still got the truck?
Sure.
No, I remember with talking about who to cast for the part for Teddy KGB, and I think we all really liked the idea of John Malkovich. And Harvey had a couple of other ideas of people, and I remember saying, look, he's got a deck of cards, some Oreos, and that's it. Somebody's going to have to create a real character here, and I think it became pretty obvious that if we were fortunate enough to get John Malkovich, he would create a character, and I think I still talk to the sound editors that mimic his lines. Very aggressive.
Sitting the apple.
Yeah.
And I gotta.
He sounds like a Russian woman, and it turns out, in fact, that is what he is, because he had remember he had that microcassette recorder, and he had a Russian woman friend who read his lines in, and so he was basically imitating a Russian woman.
Yeah, I think at that point we were all pretty much in awe of John Malkovich, and when he shows up, we had offered him a dialogue coach, and he said, "I'll be prepared." He comes to the set, and this was a writer's dream, by the way, because he wouldn't ad-lib anything.
Yeah.
Because what he had done is gotten a Russian woman to speak into a recorder, and he would listen back, and he would imitate it exactly. And I remember saying, somebody commenting on his accent, and he said, "No, when people learn a language, they don't learn it perfectly." And he was very proud of his accent in this movie.
Yeah.
In fact, one of the dialogue editor was a Russian guy. At one point, I couldn't make it to one of the sessions with John when he came in later. He asked him to revoice one of the accents, and I said, "You know what?" He had told me that he was going to ask him to do that, and I said, "I don't think I'd do that if I were you." And he did anyway, and he said, it was a disaster.
John, as talk about a writer's dream, the way that you cast and took the time to cast each role in this movie, even the smallest part, the judge with one line in this scene, is really incredible. It really feels like the world that we were trying to write about. This judge.
These guys are all great, aren't they?
Yeah.
Your bet, Captain. All right. Uncle. Michael is lead counsel in the moot court you're presiding over next week. Besides, he could use the back.
I'm sure this guy is on The Sopranos now, though.
Yeah.
He's Carmela's father.
And the great Martin Landau.
Well, also, you don't get these kind of actors when without a good script. So,
Yeah.
I mean, that's part of it. I think the dialogue was so fun that people really responded to it.
Well, and that gets back to sort of how this whole thing came together. I mean, it's worth. It says something that to me, this was the fastest I've ever made a film, and by that I mean I think you guys sent me the script in November of '97. And we were shooting it in January of '98.
Yes.
Like between the time I read it, met you in L.A.
Yep.
I said, great, let's do it. I'd love to do it. We were rehearsing by that December 8th. We were rehearsing within three weeks.
We were shooting the first week of December.
December
I think,
15th, we started shooting.
Did we?
Right.
Yeah.
That's right. I came into New York. I came back home, and we had a week or two of rehearsal the first 2 weeks of December.
Right.
And from the time I read the script to the time I was shooting was less than 2 months.
Yeah.
And we were done by the end of February.
I made that call to Dave on December 15th, 2 years before we started shooting to the day. I went to play poker that December 15th.
I mean, that in itself is a compressed time. But I think it was because I think that the reason, I mean, you look at this and you're like, oh, this is a guy actor's wet dream. This is like, like a cool director, a cool script, and like Matt and I kept talking about it. It's like Turturro and Malkovich and Martin Landau in the same movie. It's
Right.
like forget it, man.
Well, and you guys,
Yeah, but you do that movie just to get to stand on the corner of 8th Avenue, like yakking with Marty Landau about, like he's always telling his stories and going. I remember Matt and I would stand there and Landau would go, well, I remember, I was knocking around with Jimmy Dean.
And he didn't mean the sausage guy.
Yeah.
No.
I mean, it's like you do that one just for the hang.
Yeah. No, and also, maybe it's worth we did put the movie together so quickly. At one point, they entertained shooting it in Canada, and we realized that there just wasn't going to be time to get it together in Canada. So it was extremely fortunate to be able to shoot this movie, actually in New York City, and I think it really kind of
it would have been a totally different experience if we hadn't done this movie in New York. It was like.
You wouldn't have this shot,
like
right
here,
for instance.
No, but also you wouldn't, we were playing every night. I mean, all those, even during the shoot, we were going to I was knocking over to the Diamond Club or, the Mayfair with Brian. And, it was great. You can't.
No, it was an incredible experience. I mean, John, the truest thing that you said to us in the beginning was, you said, guys, I'll shoot it as is, and then you said, and I want you guys to be around every minute and be a part of it, and until you guys prove yourselves to be assholes and contradict me to the actors, you can stay. And, what an incredible experience, and I think because it was in New York, because Miramax would have never flown us to Canada for the whole shoot. I mean, we got to learn how to make a film from, one of the great directors of our time, so.
It was also, and we should mention, we had Teddy Demi, sort of, shepherding the whole thing,
right.
Which was yet another
and Joel
Stillerman, yeah. These guys, I mean, like it really was on all levels. You had the whole gang, and even the, it was such a club on that movie.
But I remember back when we were casting Worm, Edward, and there was a lot, there were a lot of other actors sort of in the mix, and it was almost like people didn't dare think of you because you were coming off some huge successes, and the casting director maybe had sort of led with this idea that it would be an insult to try to have you play the second lead in a way. And Teddy Demi said, "We've got the coolest movie here, man. Let's go after Edward because he's the best fucking actor, and let's get him in this part." And
I remember the day we were sitting there.
It was like an 11th hour call because we had all wanted to get Edward to do the movie. He was certainly one of our first choices. And at the last minute, it just kind of, worked out.
Yeah, I remember, John, you went out there and had that meeting with him. And then when you came back, you actually sent us out to take him to play poker in L.A. Because I guess, Edward, you wanted to see how real the whole thing was. Yeah. And we flew out, and then we went and we played at 2 clubs in L.A. before you officially committed. And then when you saw me lose and win, I think I lost $1,000 and then won $1,000 right away the same night.
Are you trying to calm me now?
No.
Yeah, also another screenwriting rule. If you can somehow sneak in a reference to the lead actor's sexual prowess in a really cheesy way, you will get a lead actor. and that's in this scene.
It's true. I just think if you get in this way, you'll always be a hustler to them.
Baby, I didn't even play.
I'll see you later.
I also, this would maybe be a good, sideline commentary. I remember that early on Matt was very concerned about, that his hair not look frosted. and looking at it here,
unfortunately, look what happened.
I just want to say, Matt, that you're not here, so I want to just reassure you if you catch this later that...
I don't think anyone would know it was a piece.
At Dwight Englewood Preparatory Academy over in Jersey. We were the only 2 kids attending who didn't have a trust fund.
Actually, right, I love that.
Where was this? This was Rahway in New Jersey,
Rahway.
right?
Actually, I love this that big baritone sax there. One of the music editor, her husband, Rick, was like kind of a jazz aficionado, and he pulled out all these like kind of great old jazz classics, which we used to temp with, and that big baritone sax just sort of reminded us all of Worm. And here he is.
There he is in all his glory. Now, just as a side note, the dude on the right here, Brian, I later cast in Keeping the Faith as the guy who cold cocks Ben Stiller as he tries to run through the lobby.
Oh, really?
The security guard.
To bring it all around.
Well, this is interesting because we went to Rahway to shoot the exterior, but we used a Catholic high school
that's right.
to shoot the
we
interior.
were on 13th Street, right where 13th goes into Horatio.
On the west side.
Over on the west side. We were down in the basement of that.
See here, Worm. You
can bottle Smokey what in a half an hour.
What the fuck are you talking about? I just won these.
Great choice on the handlebar mustache there, by the way, guys.
Yeah, which,
Do you remember that?
you had one shot to shave it off, right, Edward?
Right, exactly. I was just going to say that. We remember it was in the middle of the shoot, so it was a piece, and then we were like, yeah, but how are we going to show him shaving it off? And I said, well, you get one take, I'll shave the piece.
I love this guy.
Now here's Edward's first improvisational touch.
There was some in that scene.
Toothpick,
Just
the toothpick here, though.
We had Worm as a smoker.
And you made him a toothpick guy, and then you wanted it in a separate bag.
Those were my own boots, too, by the way.
Kept us in lunch money.
Here it is.
Actually, those were all my own clothes. Terry, no.
There's the
toothpick you went in with.
Yeah.
There's.
We had the starting five take a dive against.
That just looks painful.
The point guard snapped and gave Worm up. They hauled him up before the school board offered him a deal. Tell us who else was involved and we'll go easy on you. Worm didn't say a fucking word. Got himself
I remember discussing this, whether or not, I love the fact that your character wins all these cigarettes and then throws them out.
Yeah.
And, wouldn't think of, like, giving them back to the guys.
They're his winnings.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's great.
I remember at one point in the editing, we thought, well, should we take that out? Should we leave it in? I said, nah, it's,
Tells you a lot about the guy.
It really
Says
does.
everything. That was your idea, Edward. Strong.
Thanks, Brian. I still have that jacket. It was. See, the thing is, the thing that's funny that you were saying about what Ted Demme said about, oh, well, it's a cool movie. It's so true because you like think about the movies we grew up on. Like if you think of like a Mean Streets or something, like Charlie and Johnny Boy, they're like inseparable, and Johnny Boy is such a great. I always remember watching Mean Streets and thinking like, that's such a great relationship, Charlie and Johnny Boy. The guy who's trying to hold it together, and the guy who's kind of his curse,
right?
Or his penance, I think it is in Mean Streets. And this had this. I remember reading this and thinking this totally has that ring to it.
Right.
Mike is trying to hold it together, and Worm is totally his albatross in a way. It's his great old friend who's kind of the force of chaos in his life.
Who the hell am I going to trust in there? I mean, it's just me all alone.
What's this? Come here.
It's funny, for us, that's totally all true, that in the end, it has this, definitely has, Mean Streets resonance plays, but for us, it was as much Barry Levinson's movie, Diner, and the way in which guys interact with each other.
And talk.
And Mickey Rourke in Pope of Greenwich Village.
Right.
That character was a huge influence, and that's an antecedent, I mean, for sure, Mean Streets is Pope of Greenwich Village's antecedent in a much better movie. But for me and Dave, Pope of Greenwich Village was the more important movie when we were kids.
The point being, too, though, it's not even. I mean, you can go to Shakespeare and get these dynamics. It's like it's that. I think
you can because you went to Yale.
No, but I mean, it's
we have to go to movies, unfortunately.
Don't be a fake man of the people, Brian. We know where you come from.
All right.
But there's always that is a great dynamic, like sort of like I mean, even like it's like that chaotic force, the person who's he's the thing, the force that's always going to wreck the stability of the main character, and kind of put him to the test of character or something like that.
It's one of my favorite things about what I always liked about the movie is the dynamic between your characters.
Yeah.
I just think people can. I felt like I could relate to having a friend that's just this sort of destructive guy that you've known your whole life, and you kind of can't let him go. You have to kind of keep him near, even though you know he is trouble.
I remember
he's trying to like walk this like line.
Yeah.
Matt's character's trying to walk this sort of straight and narrow, and it's just too tempting.
Back when the thing was just getting on the rails, the studio kept saying, why are guys going to believe that this one guy is going to stick with this other guy? Can they be brothers? And we were like, no way, man. When guys see this, they're going to understand it because everybody's been there.
And sometimes you're closer to a guy like this than you are to your own brother.
Absolutely.
You know what I mean? Because things that it's the people you grow up with. You've got history together, and that history is like a binding force on you. You can't sometimes you'll stick with somebody a lot longer than you should, even just
Right.
because you've got that history.
Right.
Even
Even though you know it's wrong,
Yeah.
you're still there.
and where you've gone long past the point where maybe you're even on the same page.
Right.
Yeah, can I just say it's still mind-blowing to me looking at this. Like, Dave and I wrote this thing in a room that was like 5 by 7, for real. This little tiny basement that my wife had cleaned out for us that had, honestly, a slop sink in it and one chair. And when we were standing on set, Edward, and watching you and Matt do, I remember how cold it was this night. We were all standing outside watching it. I remember, and it has this reference to Peter Luger's, a restaurant we went to. I remember just saying, it's incredible. We got these guys who are for us, the two best young actors, and they're, basically doing this stuff that we wrote as we wrote it, and it's playing as it should. It's
The experience of a lifetime, really.
Your first
Well,
movie
this was early on, I
Yeah.
think, at least early on for me.
Or I remember, that scene in the car ahead
Yeah.
of time. That was one of the few scenes where Brian and David weren't there,
Yeah.
and because we were in a car.
Right.
And I remember both Matt and Edward came up to me and said, can we throw a couple of these lines out? It was, yeah, they're not here, so no. There was
And
remember
put
that
a couple other ones
You
in.
guys
There was-
called us.
Yeah, no, there was one about a
So now-
railroad Bible. Do you remember?
That's right.
There was
That's
there was,
right. That's,
which
I
we
totally
loved.
forgot that.
But there was some line about a railroad Bible, and
You guys chucked it?
we checked it.
Yeah.
Well,
And-
so if the
'cause
viewers
like-
find
like-
that scene is wanting, I think it'll be clear now,
Well,
finally.
yeah, it's almost like you need a lexicon to understand the movie anyway. But that was, I think we all agreed that it was a complicated, or in other words, and I remember my spiel to Miramax was, look, when you watch a movie in which people are professionals in a waiting room, or in an operating room, or any activity, they use the language that they use.
Mm-hmm.
That's there's a vernacular that you kind of have to grasp.
John, could you
and-
give that speech to everybody we work with on scripts from now on,
well,
please? Because it would save us the effort.
No, but it's a great point, because I always say you ought to be behind a movie.
Right.
You should never be in front of it or even with it. Like a movie like this, though, when we all read it, to me the whole cool of it is reading it and not understanding all of it.
Exactly. I love that. I love that about it. So, I would say that 90% of the word, the descriptions that you guys originally wrote are in the movie. It was some of the more esoteric ones like Railroad Bible, which I had, I don't know anybody that's going to understand that that's a
Just a deck of cards.
Yeah, exactly.
Right.
But as it is, I think it's great how you really have to kind of catch up with the dialogue. Pasadena, I love that.
By the way, there's my first actual card move, keeping the ace on the bottom.
Edward,
through the shuffle.
you really learned how to manipulate a deck, didn't you?
Yeah, I got very decent at cribbing the ace out of the muck, out of the muck of cards.
And you used that move in
and
money
moving it.
games, didn't you? Just to practice?
Only against Harvey and Bob Weinstein.
And
No, I got good at holding the ace on the bottom and then moving it to the top, or then holding it second from the bottom so that it's hidden, and then moving it up to the top and deal off to your partner. I found what they call second dealing and bottom dealing was actually way too hard to learn in that period of time. But
Worm and I fall into our old rhythm like Clyde Frazier and Pearl Monroe.
I knew that Matt and I were going to have fun together making this movie, that I was going to have a good time with him, because when we shot all this stuff in these first those car scenes and it was cold, Matt and I just sat there basically trading off playing Charles Grodin and Robert De Niro in Midnight Run and just doing all the lines back and forth. And we tested each other. We tested each other for hour after hour after hour on our ability to do Midnight Run verbatim, and basically came away just agreeing that we
just nailed it.
Yeah, we love the movie equally.
Worm really has become an
this scene,
I love this game, this cards game though.
I love it because, particularly because it was really a scene almost inspired exactly from life. When I went to college, I went to Tufts, which is 15 minutes away from Harvard, and we took a lot of pride in going to Harvard and playing it there. They have these finals clubs, I think they're called, which are like really high-scale fraternities. Beautiful, incredible places like this place. And my friends and I would go and play poker against those guys, and we usually went back to Tufts with almost all the money.
Money's gone. It's time to move on. So enjoy it, you secret handshake assholes.
Nice.
I think I made that up.
I think that was an ad.
You secret handshake
You're on the
assholes.
board.
First half of the line was ours, second half was
I've been a couple
yours.
already. I've let a few go.
I also remember talking to Brian David saying, you know, Edward's making up lines. I said, don't worry, you'll get credit for them anyway.
Yeah.
How'd we do? Oh, beautiful. Fucking assholes, they deserve it.
Someone should mention that John's wisdom in casting.
Hey, you were great.
Elena.
Great. When can we do this again?
No, it was a one-time thing for me, just because.
You saw that she was going to have a hit late night Sudzer on NBC.
Thanks a lot. Yeah, thanks. Hey, I had to try.
No,
right?
it actually, you know, I'd say the first day it was a little odd for us being a first movie when, and especially we had 6 days without much improvisation, and then
I showed
Edward,
up.
you showed up.
Hey, but that was another one I had to try, right?
Yeah, that was yours, absolutely. And but truthfully, you know, I've been around some of your other movies, and I think you've said, you know, I think proportionally you said more of the written dialogue than in almost any other film.
Yeah, well, to me though, I gotta say, like, I mean, with all respect for even like, you know, the greatest of writers, it's like if a movie is such a multi-phase experience, you know, it's a collaboration of not only people working together at the same time, but people working together in different phases.
Yes.
You know, writers, directors and actors, editors, these things, and I think both the best and the most difficult part of it is that collaboration. But as a result, no one phase of making a movie is ever definitive.
Right. It's an ongoing process.
And you learn to celebrate that, and you learn to realize that if the alchemy of it, if you get lucky, the people in each phase will push it to the next level,
If I could say one thing though, without sounding too complimentary, because I'd hate to be too complimentary, is, you know, you're very good at it. The problem is, you know, you get on movie sets, and especially with
yes.
people who like have said worked with you or worked with someone like Woody Harrelson, who's also quite good at it, and they think that then they are good at it.
Right.
You know, as long as you made it better. You know, you came up with snow and pierogies and shit, which
Right,
is like
that's
my
coming
favorite
up
line
here.
in the movie. And
But to throw it back at you, it's much easier to do that if a script is well written and a character is well defined and has great lines and is well carved, you know, and a script has a vernacular, then it's so much easier to take it and just make it your own,
Right.
and add around to it in a way that feels consistent because it's already been well drawn.
Right, you're adding personality to it. You know, not necessarily. I think it's always a problem when if it starts to alter the plot or some
Right.
of the intentions, and
Plot-
that's when it gets a little frightening. But when an actor's making it their own and embellishing the character and adding personality, it's great.
yeah,
I'm gonna triple that in a half an hour.
and another part of Edward of your process that was great as far as that went is, if you came up with an ad lib, usually it's because something felt false or didn't feel quite right, and then often you would call us over because we weren't threatened by the idea, and you'd run 10 possibilities for us, and we'd all choose one.
It's also easy, like Matt. I mean, Matt's really good at it too. You know, I mean, Matt's like a great writer, and Matt's got a great feel for dialogue too. I mean, his character in this one's held back more, but when we were doing a lot of our, you know, like, it's so easy to do banter with Matt because that's how he talks in life anyway. I mean, he's constantly, you know, he's got such a quick tongue, you know.
Right.
And I think in a lot of these scenes, both not only the dialogue, whatever improvs we were doing, but just the snap of it. If you don't have someone who can do that snap with you, you know, you're toast.
Right.
You know, and that's why, joking aside, like, it was when I said we were doing the midnight run things, it was great. I was like, okay, this guy's a total kindred spirit. You know, he's got that feel for rhythm of
Right.
dialogue, which I think was so key between
Right, sort of like a juggling act.
Mike and
almost.
Worm, yeah.
Well, it's also, you know, you had to, that's part of you know, the appeal is that these guys are such good friends they can finish each other's sentences.
Right. Yeah. Now I remember, I mean, just in the production history of it, I remember even as I came in, the issue of the woman, his girl in the thing was, there was a lot of, I feel like there was a lot of debate as to, you know, what her role had been in Mike's life. Like, did you want her to be kind of, you know, someone who had been in the life with him,
Right.
or someone who was in a different life and wanted him to leave that life? Do you want to talk about that at all?
Now, wait a minute. Make sure.
Like, because I remember it was sort of a, it was kind of like, you know, it was kind of a vague. I think that was one of the things that came
We
together.
actually, in the script, in the original conception, we had an idea that she was going to go out of the movie much earlier. And in fact, he was going to have a buddy from like this study group that he ended up having many more scenes with. But I guess it must have been the studio's idea at first to keep her in it, to try to keep more of a romantic feel. But yeah, we definitely had the idea that she was somebody that he'd known and had been with outside of the underground poker world, and she was trying to pull him away from that.
Right.
I'll act as lead counsel.
It's all right, Kelly. We were gonna take a break anyway.
Coffee time.
The guy's a cheat. He always has been. Right now he's over there at Chesterfield's ruining your reputation with every lousy second he gives.
Shit, I told him. Did anybody else see him?
No, nobody saw. I heard it. Snapping sound gave it away. If I had known, I might not have noticed. I turn around and I see him there with the mechanic's grip. I know. He won't know.
Did you give him the office?
I tried to warn him, but he looked right through me.
All right, I'll go get him.
No, he's okay now.
When the movie came out, I think there was that feeling that you know, it was going to be a little bit more like Good Will Hunting, which was played this big romance. And
All right, this was definitely a lot of fun.
Amarillo Slim, the greatest proposition gambler of all time, held to his father's maxim. You can shear a sheep many times, but skin him only once.
Gotta bet my tax.
This is a lesson Worms never bothered.
But let's pause to hear the best ad lib in the movie.
Hey, guys, English only at the table, no Russian.
What are you talking about?
What am I talking about?
Right here.
If you want to see this seventh card, you're gonna stop speaking fucking Sputnik. You understand?
That motherfucker.
Don't worry, we might work together.
Yeah, I'm sure you're just talking about pierogies and snow and shit, but let's cut it
There
out.
it
right?
is.
There's the
And there it is. So thanks for that, Edward.
Sputnik, I think
that was
in there
Edward
too.
too, yeah.
I like talking Sputnik.
Plus, I think is Ed Gore here? He's
Goran.
got a great,
Goran,
yeah, Goran. I love the way he's got that perfect Euro trash
Totally.
smoking thing down.
Yeah, the ash is like 4 inches long on the end of
Yeah.
the cigarette.
But you made me for the sevens, Maurice. You're a player. Hey, come on. Don't be a fucking
This
baby.
also came from a night that I played cards with a guy who had the first name of one of these two guys who was getting the bracelet on the next day.
Yeah, that was great.
Legitimately going to jail the next day or going to house arrest with a bracelet on.
This is actually when you could still smoke on a movie set.
Hey, John, do you think you
want
want
a ton of smoke in this movie?
Do you want to talk about the job Rob Pearson did here in creating these clubs?
Yeah, we have to
it's
give
really
a,
incredible.
Give a
Yeah,
shout out
it
to the
is
production
amazing.
designer who made
That
this
was
movie.
in like an abandoned building
so
down
good.
by Wall Street.
Yeah. No, I actually remember when having read the script and then going to New York and walking around some of these clubs with Brian and David, and they were like, I was sort of mortified in a way because they were these overlit, bright, fluorescent rooms with nothing on the walls,
Right.
and they were just like I was really kind of debating whether or not to take the production designer to those at all because I didn't want to scare him off. Because I always imagined that, to me, it was sort of like you needed to kind of create this world that was a little more seductive and wanted to draw you in.
Yes.
And they seemed like
Yeah.
Although Rob picked the best details, because then you had us take Rob to all the clubs.
Right.
And he picked any details from the real places that worked.
Right.
He used them and he magnified them.
Right, like, or remember that the chandelier over Teddy KGB's
Right.
table? You know, he saw that in some club, and he said, you know, it's like all these parts that they've grabbed from all over. And no, Rob did a fantastic job.
I'd like to comment on this scene. That this is what you're actually watching here is Edward Norton freezing his fucking ass off and eating 17 hot dogs.
Yeah. Notice the bites getting
What a bad
smaller and
decision.
smaller, right?
No, actually, but what's such a because you know that wasn't in the scene. And
We
this
wrote
is
Bear Claw in the scene.
to the
Yeah.
to the actors in the world. You know, I mean, you think
Eat slowly.
like it'll be a prop. It'll he's not really listening to Mike. He sees a hot dog. He's a guy who acts on impulse. He goes for it. I just committed myself to eating 16 hot dogs between 10 a.m. and 1
Plus,
p.m.
Edward,
Yes.
you know, we originally wrote that.
I started shoving the hot dog deeper and deeper into the bun so that I was just getting a bite of bread.
We wrote it as a bear claw, a pastry, and I remember you saying, God, I can't sit around eating a pastry that long. So then you had the great idea of making it a hot
Look at me, I
dog.
look sick. Look at me trying to swallow. You see me trying to swallow?
Yeah.
And I remember
it gets worse. Remember the noodle bar?
Oh,
That's where.
God, that was awful. Do you
That's
remember-
what these
you remember-
guys eat,
I
though.
remember,
Yeah.
John, I said to you on the street, I was like, hey, could I like break away in the middle of what he's saying to me and like go over and buy a hot dog, and we,
Yeah.
we could have
Oh,
some,
yeah.
movement in the scene or something. You were like, giving me this look like, you really want to do that?
Well, that's what these guys eat. That's when you're playing poker all night
God,
long.
it was a bad idea. Such a
Plus,
bad idea.
Plus, I don't think we had. I think the reason I probably looked that way is because I don't think I had a hot dog cart, so I had to go find one and then get it there. And
Here's
then,
my love scene with Famke, the closest I'll ever get to it.
Yeah, I think we should also make a note that when we wrote and conceived of this, she was not, one of the most gorgeous women in the world. She was sort of just a standard, underground poker club working person. And then, so we wrote the scenes where Matt's character avoids making love to her when she puts it on the table.
Right. Yeah, that's realistic. That's realistic.
Hey, I'm looking all over for you.
Didn't want to be found. You know, Petrovsky waited and waited. So did the rest of the group.
Look, I missed one meeting.
You know, it's not about the meeting. I don't care about the meeting. Do you even know why I left this morning? I found that gangster's roll in your pocket.
It's not what you think.
John, this was one of the only reshoots, right?
Who do you think I am?
Did we reshoot this? Oh, the scene out on the side on the
When
street.
it comes out, yeah.
No, we did two scenes. We shot two things.
Yeah, this and then when Edward and Matt leave Grandma's, right?
Yeah, this was not my favorite line in the movie was not when Gretchen says, "I'm not hanging around to watch you go all in again."
Yeah. Well, originally we had a big reference to the Magnificent Seven in this, but we just couldn't make it. It was James Coburn. He was going to be as cool as James Coburn throwing knives. But
Yeah, I remember that. That's not in there.
No, not in the movie. In the reshoots, Miramax then somehow
love
it
that one.
got taken out.
For some reason, I remember this. There was a couple of things. I think we felt like we could probably, get the scene to work better, and the dialogue could have been better, or somehow by that time we felt like we could make it play better, and also I think we'd used which I would never do again. We had a Steadicam running in front of the people, and I felt like it was slowing them down, and they couldn't really walk.
Oh, that's really
So
interesting.
when we dollied on the side.
Here's an interesting comment that maybe. Billy's clown.
Yeah, let's give a moment to Billy's. I'm clapping.
Let's just
Billy's
say,
Topless, one of the great
Billy's
real
Topless.
strip joints.
Reopened?
No, one of the great real strip joints that got shut down.
23rd and 6th Avenue. It was still really there when we filmed this movie, and it's gone now.
And another great piece of directorial wisdom from John. He said right before we shot this, he goes, "You're going to see just how many Teamsters are working on this movie when we have the nude girls on stage."
They were high quality girls too.
Hey, it's spinning.
And there's Mike Rispoli, one of the great pieces of casting in this movie.
There were a lot of angry people when you went away. A lot of people were mad.
I love this relationship too.
A lot of people coming up to me, asking if I could help, asking if I
love
knew.
the
I
way
think
you
this
just-
was an
you just
improv
put-
too. You're thinking,
Yeah.
Spinner? That's big.
Really? You're thinking now? That's big.
Yeah, it was your thinking now was the line. You added it's big.
Yeah.
But no, another great one is right here coming up. Edward rolling fags. That was your line.
What did I say? Get the fuck out of here! Yeah, easy. Fuck out of here!
God, he's funny.
He is a convincing
I
tough
truly,
guy.
when he shows up in his red long underwear, that's to me about as good as it gets.
I think this first time, I remember the first time Brian and David took me to this place, and I walked into it, I said, wow, it's like real. He said, yeah, you know, I still, the script seemed like, I don't know what I was expecting, but I didn't think that all these places kind of existed. So when we went into Billy's Topless, I was sort of blown away that this kind of place existed. And then when we were there, I remember seeing a businessman walk out of the bathroom with one of the girls.
Oh, that's,
that's
great,
a good
John.
And then I'm thinking, oh yeah, they do that here.
Now, you want to know another?
A bit
John,
naive, yeah.
John, here's an example. This
Doesn't
is a
happen
great.
that much in
No.
This is
in
another.
the Montana roadhouses. You
No.
don't have girls going in the back.
When he beats him up in here, at one point John had asked us, "Can you make it more intense?" So our idea, Edward, and it was before you were, I think, attached to the movie, was that he would make you eat a
You would
urinal
slam
cake.
your face into the urinal
Oh,
and stick
that's
a
nice.
urinal cake in your mouth.
And John Dahl, we were meeting at some really fancy, like Ian Schrager Hotel, and John just went, "You guys don't know about movie stars. No matter what I say, they're not going to eat a urinal cake." And so we had to take the
I'd
urinal
have done
cake
it for
out.
John.
You would have, right? You were game for everything.
It would have
Edward
just
was
been a
game.
big. It would have been a big sweet tart or something.
I mean,
What I would have
in
done
all
is
seriousness,
what I
Ed-
would have done is
Yeah.
is made the motions of a real effort and just made it not work.
No, but see, I just, you know, it's sort of more brutal this way. I mean, you know, it's always kind of hard to force
Yeah.
somebody's head into it.
Yeah.
You know.
You know, I think it's an interesting side note too is that in this movie, I remember the first time I looked at some of your dailies or something, and I remember thinking, "Wow, what is it about this movie that feels cool and different to me from a lot of New York kind of mood movies or, you know, night movies?" And I realized all of a sudden that it was really amber. You know, really yellow and amber and like in the tones, the production design, but especially the lighting too.
It's very warm.
It was very warm, and I started thinking about it, and it's a weird thing to say, but you know, there was this period across the 80s and even early 90s when like New York movies got very blue,
right,
very cool. And I remember I said something to you and to Jean-Yves Escoffier, our cinematographer, and I remember saying something like about it. And Jean-Yves said something that I never knew, which is he said, well, you know, in New York in the 80s, they put halogen lights in all the things and they were blue. So he said if you wanted to shoot in New York and not have to do all this extra work, you had to light everything to match the halogen lights that were all over New York. And he said, and they've been saving money by going to sodium vapor lights, and many more of them are amber now. Mm-hmm. You know, so he was kind of in part being practical and in part, I think, going for something you guys had going in the movie, but I think it totally is right for this movie. Like, you know, if it had that sort of Michael Mann, Night in the City, or whatever kind of blue thing, it'd be totally different.
Yeah, no, you know, it was kind of interesting because Jean-Yves was French and Rob Pearson was from New Zealand, and our costume designer was from California, Terry. And so none of us were, and I'm from Montana, so none of us were from New York, and it was a great sort of leap of faith for everybody to make this very New York movie with nobody from New York. And but I think in a way what was nice about it is that you get the sort of outsider's, you know, view of New York, and I just think that, you know, all three of them did a fantastic job in terms of creating a really great look. Well, I think that's sort of like a warmth and sort of, you know, kind of it makes it, I don't know, to me very appealing.
Yeah, but Brian and David and I all live in New York, and I mean, maybe would you guys agree? To me, it feels more like New York than those blue New York movies.
Oh, right. Absolutely.
Totally, because this is totally the way New York bars feel. It is those colors right there, and it is, you know, warm lights in bars and whenever you see, I always think of like the classic sort of orange and white striped steam pipe in New York with the steam coming out of it.
Right.
It's always cut by kind of a gentle light. It's never those hard blues and cool colors that you see in sort of slick movies. I never feel like that looks like New York whenever I see it. And then when I watched this, I was like, yeah, that's how downtown looks.
Well, for us, there was something so seductive about the underground poker world, and John picked up on that, and you made the movie seductive. It pulls you in, pulls you underground, and that's what we were really going for.
I knew I could never be a rabbi.
Well, it's it's kind of what's great about it is you guys kind of created this script that created a world. Like again, to me, in reading the script, I remember thinking I was surprised that these places really existed in a way, because in a way I was expecting that it had been almost like an artificial world had been created, and I think that's part of the way it was written. Here in the Mutual Admiration Society, that this has become.
But I would say, the Mutual Admiration Society, for us, just sitting here doing this is so rewarding, because when the movie first came out, although a lot of the reviews were positive, I mean, I think it's interesting to say, and just going back to Edward, what you said before about how quickly this film came together. For 3 months after we wrote the script, we sent it out to every agency, because we had no representation or anything, and they all passed. Every one of them said, this doesn't work, it's overwritten, this world seems, no one would believe this world. And then, someone, Teddy read it and got it to Miramax, they loved it, then everybody loved it. And when the movie came out, a lot of people said that the script felt that this stuff seemed sort of unrealistic or unbelievable. From a script standpoint, they loved what John did and the performances, but over the last 5 years, it's like people have caught up in the same way that The Town did. And they understand that, this world did exist in New York at this time, before Giuliani.
Yeah, and I think, too, it's like whether certain movies hit in the vagaries of kind of release dates and the moment they come out in, movies kind of can come to define a certain milieu, like we think of The Hustler as one of the great pool movies, or... and there really hadn't been a poker movie, and we talked about this at the time. It was one of the things that appealed to me when I read it. You read a lot of genre movies. You get genre movies come across your desk all the time. Heist movies, just come by the dozen, literally, and a lot of them are great. And cop movies, corrupt cop movies, and things like that. And that was one of the things is when I read it, I thought, what was the last
poker
card movie?
Yeah.
Poker movie. I think we talked about Cincinnati Kid,
right?
And that was, All right. Here's an improv.
Well, do you want to call it an improv or do you want to call it an homage?
An homage.
Because this is taken from another movie.
It is improvisational, however.
Hey, she crossed her legs too fast, all right?
Who knows the movie out there? First guy to send a note to...
she crossed her legs too fast.
Where's that from?
From, a wound on the face.
And I got to say...
Tick-tock. You didn't know at the time.
I was just going to say I did not know until you and I were sitting in a movie theater 3 months ago.
That's right.
Watching the movie that it's in. It's Chinatown. And we were watching the movie and I hit you when I saw the line.
Exactly. And I finally owned up to it. I'll take credit for something for as long as I can.
John, did you know that was from Chinatown?
I had no idea.
When Nicholson has the cut on his nose and he sees the big sort of oaf guy, and then he says, she crossed her legs too fast. I always really liked this scene. I don't know why. I just thought this was like, because this was kind of. I know why. It's because this is where they kind of reforge. They've been dancing around each other all through the movie, and this is where like Worm actually hooks him with the things that they actually mutually love. This was one of your among many great lines. I loved that. I loved that
you domesticated
that these guys know each other so well that he got domesticated. There's so much in this that's good, but I loved that what hooks him is his description of stacks of checks and rolled up kings over aces, like these bizarre little
What's saying?
I don't know. There ought to be one.
Yeah.
Was this also your line? Women in the poker game of life, women are the rake.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's in this. Yes. Yeah, this scene is just chock full of great lines.
We actually heard a rounder, a guy, say that line in a club one night and just wrote it down and put it in the script the next day.
Deserved to be immortalized.
Oh, forget it. I can't. Are you kidding me? Like, I can't. If I going to play poker.
Springsteen reference coming up. 3, 2, 1.
Yeah.
Where the sand turns to gold.
Right there.
Sands turn to gold. Yeah.
Atlantic City.
But the
How many middle-aged burned out bookies and poker players have slapped you on the back for that "women of the rake" line though, Brian?
Oh yeah, people love that line.
Are you kidding? No, I can't.
The poker room at the Mirage in Vegas is the center of the poker universe. Doyle Brunson, Johnny Chan, Phil Hellman, the legends consider it their office. Every couple of days, a new millionaire shows up wanting to beat a world champion. Usually they go home with nothing but a story. Down here, the millionaires are scarce or they're playing craps, but there's still plenty of money for the taking. In fact, on the weekends, you can't get a game in the city because all the New York Wowndars are taking care of the tourists here.
Hey, why don't you warm up and see for me? I'll catch up with you. What?
You know, this was interesting because this is one of the only references to sex in the movie, given that he doesn't sleep with Famke. Like, this is Worm basically saying, I can't play poker. I've been in prison.
State, you know, brought about a few changes in.
Hey, in your dreams, lover.
Hey, Mikey!
Hey.
I like that they're all there. Hey.
This little bit was kind of a personal highlight just for me, strictly because I got to have 3 lines with John Turturro.
For someone who don't play, spend a lot of time in card rooms.
And the other 3 guys at the table are all comedians. Lenny Clark, Alan Havey, and Joe. Sorry, Joe, I don't remember your last name.
Occasional? Yeah, like my ex-wife occasionally went out with other men.
You got her face.
God, Famke's really a fish out of water in that crowd, isn't she? She's a diamond among
You know, the
coal.
idea for Famke, I think, came from Teddy because he had just put her in Monument Avenue.
Right?
And she's great in that movie. And I think he said, I think I can get her to do this. And we
Did
also,
anybody have a better sense of like who was really cool that no one else knew yet than Teddy Demi?
Maybe no one ever, man.
Teddy Demi,
had a
like
gift.
Teddy Demi was so ahead of the curve in terms of like who had old school kind of cool. And I remember too, because when we showed up to do that, first scene in the poker club, and she was there, I remember thinking, oh, they cast some tomato as like the girl behind the checking thing, and then we did like just 2 or 3 lines. And I remember almost looking at her almost like Worm does in the scene and going, whoa, like
She had
like
game.
you're in it, you can act. You know, this girl's right down in her shoes.
Hold on,
She's
you're about to
like-
get to the most important scene in the movie where you see the writers.
Right, okay, just
Coming.
so you can put a name to the face, the 2 schlubs.
That wrote the movie. When
wrote
it
the
comes up,
movie.
Dave, is your mustache? That's the hands of one of the writers. There he
There
is.
he
That's
is.
David Levine.
The John
Wrote the
Stossel
movie.
mustache.
Wait, smoking
there's
the-
Koppelman.
Wait, no, there's me. That's Koppelman right there.
Nice beard.
Looking like a young Al Goldstein.
That's what I asked for. Do you know that?
Kitty
No,
porn
come
producer.
on.
Ask,
Did you really?
Yeah, I said, make me look like a kid porn producer.
Oh, come on, that's great.
That's awesome. See how good Carla is at makeup? Carla White did that.
Whatever happened to that belt? I like that Worm belt.
How are you workaholics?
Worm, good to see you. Glad you're out.
Oh yeah, this is great. This rivalry between Kanish and Worm.
Need the number.
I'll give you a ring.
Hey, Worm, do they allow people like you in places like this?
Josh Mostel lost to me in poker every day he worked on the movie. I made money.
Wow. Let's get started.
I think it'd be good to share that one story about who, there's a guy that Turturro's character is based on who was actually named
Joey Bagels.
Joe Bagels, right? And
Yeah.
you guys made it Joe Kanish?
He's Joel Bagels.
Joel Bagels, right.
And he actually said in a club one night, "Women are the rake." We should give if we're mentioning Bagels.
Now,
And the
credit
character
where
is
the
not
credit's due.
the character is not Bagels, but it's certainly close to him and
Right.
close to
No, it's not.
his
It's
spirit.
not.
It's his spirit. Is
the
infused
veteran,
in that.
the veteran grinder.
A guy who spent years playing, and the
But
first time
wasn't
the first night I walked in a poker club, this guy Joe Bagel said, I asked him if he knew somebody, and he said, anybody who's played in any card game in the past 15 years, I know him.
Mike, please.
And that's like what the Kanish character's like.
Wasn't he famous though for? You of course, as you do things, you forget whether it's a story you heard or whether you were there for. But I do remember that it playing in the Diamond Club with Joe Bagels and you guys. Do you remember that guy in the Diamond Club? He was just the lowest rent grinder around, and he had a big pair of glasses, and one of them looked like it had a bullet hole through it. And he never repaired it.
Yeah,
he always went around with this shot out.
That was
one
not
side of his
that was
glasses.
not that was not
No,
Bagels.
that's not Bagels. I know
Bagels is
that,
as
but-
cool as they come.
I know, but he was there, and he was I think my recollection is that that guy said something to Bagels, was giving a bad beat story, and Joel Bagels said, that's not a bad beat, that's just bad playing, and the guy said, well, what's a bad beat then, Joel? And he went, Hiroshima. That's a bad beat.
Hiroshima's a bad beat.
That's a good line.
Yeah, he had a lot of great lines.
I think this is. See, notice.
Look at
I think this is the scene that you did after the hot dog,
Yeah.
and you'll notice Edward has not put one noodle in
And
his
Matt
mouth,
is- and Matt is
just
chewing
shoveling
slowly.
it in. Well, no, I think it was like, I think Matt started out with like the first 2 or 3 takes, just shoveling it in, and then I think he realized that.
Yeah.
Yeah, this is going to take
Not
a while.
bad idea.
John, how did you get the idea to put Vernon Jordan in the movie? President Clinton's close confidant and advisor.
That was, I think Harvey was up at Martha's Vineyard and said, "Oh yeah, I'll put you in the movie."
Here it comes. Mr. McDermott, perhaps we
I also remember just being constantly impressed at the young girls that Martin Landau always seems to pull.
Landau's an inspiration in lots of different ways.
He is.
Lead counsel for plaintiff, Mr. McDermott.
He had great stories.
Please proceed with oral arguments.
I should say that Matt's character's name, Mike McDermott, comes from a guy that Levine and I hung around with for a long time.
Legendary Chicago singer-songwriter.
The hair doesn't look frosted there, Matt. It looks good.
Sprayed, though. Well sprayed.
Yeah,
The case
sprayed.
which controls the issue at bar would be Texas versus Johnson, which holds...
My entire legal education, I went to law school at night, pays off in this scene.
McDermott, that is a Supreme Court free speech case that
It's all I've ever
has
used
no
it for.
bearing in the premises.
Each group was apprised.
I have fond memories, too, of standing on, like, the corners wherever we were shooting, and basically it boiling down to competition between Matt and Teddy Demi for who had the best Harvey Weinstein impersonation. Like, Matt has a very good one, but I definitely think Teddy
was
Demi
very
has
good.
he has it down.
What we have here is a clear case of gerrymandering.
I think this was Martin Landau's first day, I remember. And I think we had to. Do you guys remember? I think we had to shoot this. We started. This
started
the
at
earliest
3 in the
call
morning.
I ever had because Matt had to go to an interview in the afternoon.
Yeah, we remember very well.
You have to know something about a case to give an opening statement.
Guys, what can I say?
Hey, worked out great for me, McDermott. I think I actually impressed Marinacci.
Joe.
What?
I mean, we're not gonna talk? I mean, you left me pretty quick there.
Make it sound as if it was my decision.
Well, it wasn't mine. I came home and you were gone. You just gonna drop me like that?
I learned it from you, Mike. I mean, you always told me that this was the rule. Rule number 1, throw in your cards the moment you know they can't win. Fold the hand.
Look, this is our thing that we're talking about, all right? It's not some losing hand of poker.
I know exactly what we're talking about, Mike.
So that's the last of it then?
Yeah. I mean, I'd say good luck, but I know it's not about luck.
Matt does bizarre impersonations. You know, I do a few weird ones, like I have a good William Hurt, you know, and strange things. Like we all do our Christopher Walken.
Oh well, I gotta hear. Let's hear your William Hurt.
I have a good Dustin Hoffman. But no, but Matt does like the best Morgan Freeman impersonation I've ever heard. I mean, of all people,
Wait,
he does Morgan Freeman in Glory better than anyone I've ever heard.
Wow.
He does really strange ones.
This guy, Eric Seidel, who plays against Johnny Chan on TV, we've saddled this guy with being like the biggest loser in history, but I think he's the 3rd winningest player in the history of the World Series of poker.
Yeah, the guy makes a huge living.
I remember when we got this, we got the rights to use this tape. It was huge because I think this was the original thing that was in the script.
This
right?
was in the script, yes.
And then we weren't sure if they were going to give us the rights, and we finally had to get the rights from Seidel.
Because that
finally
presages the
agreed
final
to it.
hand. Yeah.
Yeah.
Here's the most unbelievable scene in the movie.
This is the one when people ask if
a guy like Matt Damon turning down a girl like that.
Yeah,
Apologies to the viewers, and John, you should take some of the blame for this.
Yeah,
too.
how did you not spot this, John? You know, when people ask us if we've ever written science fiction, we say, "Well, yeah, look at this scene."
Yeah, look at this scene. Yeah.
Where this
How did you
alien
not ever
walks
take the
in.
dress off?
You know.
Oh my God! Look at her,
John.
Yeah, no, I had met her before this at a film festival in Cognac. And,
Famke's way too nice and smart a girl to be put in a body like that.
88 World Series, huh?
She's great.
Johnny Chan flops the nut straight. and has the discipline to wait him out. He knows Seidel's gonna bluff at it.
And talk about acting Johnny Chan in a real life moment here, selling the selling the bluff. There he is.
Well, actually, if you think about it, it's it's at a pretty esoteric point that gets made here, and then it really pays off at the end of the movie. I think, I remember when we were previewing it, and the fact that, people would say, "Oh yeah, it was because Seidel, lost."
Right.
Johnny Chan flopped the nut.
Yeah, he flopped the nut straight.
Johnny.
There's Seidel, the poor guy.
The sideways visor.
Johnny gave Matt and I a few lessons, both during the movie and then
Tomorrow's a week.
Later when we got invited to play in the World Series. And the interesting thing is not to take credit for it all through this movie, but I mean, when we made this movie, this whole sort of poker rage, this televised poker rage was not going on.
It was non-existent.
I mean, this thing of celebrity poker, of the televised World Series. I mean,
who'd ever heard of Texas Hold'em outside of few card players?
Yeah, and I don't think, I can't say I think it's strictly because of this movie, but I definitely think that that spring after we made the movie, Matt and I went and played at the World Series, and not cause and effect, but it's just like the snowball was really just beginning right then.
Yeah, you guys got huge press for being part of that.
Yeah, just for being there.
And the poker players will tell you, and there's another commentary track on this DVD for the greatest poker players in the world, sort of talking about this stuff. But I think they'd all say that they can't walk into a poker room now without somebody saying that they're playing poker because of Wowndars. And Chris Moneymaker won the World Series of Poker in 2003. Started playing because he watched this film, and that made him say that he wanted to.
We've had
play
professional poker players thank us for writing this movie because it gets a lot of suckers who've seen the movie and losing money to them.
And Edward, I don't know if you know this because I don't know if you've played online poker at all, but these online poker casinos are a huge business, and when you go on,
wait, let's just look and see that Matt Damon can barely stand up straight right now.
Yeah. You think he's throwing that?
He's limping.
You think he's throwing this thing because he's angry? Because he's angry at Worm. He's really angry at all of us for not letting him. There you go. But Edward, in the poker rooms, half the guys call themselves Worm. Worm 1, Worm 2, a lot of Teddy KGBs.
Yeah, if I go play, I've go pop into Hollywood Park or Commerce down here, or in New York. The new underground clubs, like if I duck in with friends just for a laugh, like it's crazy. It's not even, I can't even be me. Everyone wants to, and it's crazy because I have a hard time. I have to play high stakes to get a good game because everyone just wants to stay in the hand against Worm.
Right.
Oh, that's funny. Well, actually, last time I think I was at Commerce, Edward, we switched. I was like the Worm character, and you were Mike. Remember, I busted out, and you had to loan me like the last. I had nothing in my wallet. You had to give me $100.
I really liked a lot of the lines in this scene.
I like your sneakers.
Yeah. Well, I said this at the time when people were doing interviews, but I did have I had two inspirations in mind with this character after I read him. One was for the clothes, it was Keith Richards, and for the basic attitude about life, it was Bugs Bunny. And I wanted to put these sneakers in because just somehow I thought they were like it was sort of the Bugs Bunny feet.
Yeah. I remember when we found this place, when you were hiding out from Tommy Mann.
Did you guys always have this line in here about she was a good-looking older woman?
Yeah, from day one.
That was hilarious.
You fucked his mother.
Yeah, but she was a good-looking older woman. You got to give me that.
See, but look at these colors. This is what I mean. This is when you got, this is just like this riot of gold. And
we used to break into gyms late at night to play basketball when we were in high school. Dave, this was like the very first idea we had, right?
Just
the first scene we had in our mind for the movie was this scene and one guy hiding out in a gym and the other guy coming to find him.
I don't like running solo. It's like I used to have a running partner, you know what I'm saying?
If we fucked up back then and got caught, the worst thing that was going to happen was we would maybe catch a beating. We were going to get expelled. But, man, you're fixing to go down hard. It almost seems like...
That's a vintage John Dahl shot with that piece of your body, Edward. Normally it's a woman in John's movies, but the destructive force, just these little pieces of it.
I'll see you.
I like the cross on the wall.
Yeah.
Well, this is a Catholic school also, right, John?
I think we shot the jail
the same
in the basement.
Place?
Might have
been. Yeah, it was.
And this is like one of those scenes where I think this was like a 5-page scene or something. It was a lot. I mean, like this was like a lot to do in one day. But I think I felt like it would be better to give you guys try to find a way to shoot it so you didn't have to come back and do the whole scene again the next day.
John, that moment there where you have the staging wise, when Matt walks away, and for the first time, Worm really goes to Matt. Worm plays it a certain way most of the movie, but he's almost truthful here, and he goes to him.
I was really up big.
Yeah, a lot of that is, I hardly ever block actors. I let them block the scene themselves. I might, suggest, but I think, generally if the script's, you're going to kind of find a way to do the scene.
Yeah.
And that.
How often would you say? I mean, because that's totally my recollection of working with you. Is not. I mean, I just kind of remember you laying back and watching us do it. And yet, when I watch the movie, like a lot of things feel incredibly composed to me. And I don't mean the action of the characters, but you have a lot of there's beautiful compositions of streets and of.
Well, I might,
that cross in the back. You know what I mean?
Right. Father on down. Maybe he's not the same guy he was when he went away, but I can't give up on him that easy. I'm all he's got.
Oh, what the hell?
Hi, boys.
Hi.
You cops? You look like cops.
We're not cops.
You want to twirl then?
No, we're just here to see Grandma.
Sure about this? I got a bad feeling.
That's all right. Just let me do the talking, all right?
Here it is, Mike Rispoli resplendent in his red
union
suit.
Edward, you then arranged to work with him in Death to Smoochie, right?
I didn't even. Danny DeVito had worked with him or knew him and cast him as Spinner Dunn, a.k.a. Moochie the Rhino in Death to Smoochie.
I think this was Michael's idea. I said I think he wanted to wear long underwear in this scene.
It's genius. It's.
And then Rob said, we should paint the whole thing red, which is generally you try not to do because it kind of blooms.
Oh, this was great too when he attacks the dog. Yeah. Look at our faces. That was legitimate. Those faces were like, what the hell is going on here?
Can't let them get away with it, else they think they own the place.
I think I wanted to say this thing about I need your charity like I need your cock in my ass, and isn't that in here?
I think it might be.
No, I think didn't we think that was like pushing it?
No, you said it, dude. It's in the movie.
Oh, it is?
Yeah.
It's coming up.
I couldn't remember if it was.
And that's actually what caused John. That's why we reshot the scene after, because you were like, after that, they were too calm originally.
Right. The scene following.
Yeah, we shot the exterior first, and then we had to go back and shoot the exterior after.
Yeah, it just seemed like after we put the.
Would you shut the fuck up?
It's too late for him to shut up. It's too fucking late.
No, listen. He's good for it. He's good for it, all right?
He's good for it, Mike. If you think he's good for it, it's on you,
See, that sets a guy off, doesn't it, John? When you cross that line.
I think I remember saying to Michael.
When two men in an argument, when one crosses that line with a comment like that, it's going to get physical.
Yep. I think I remember saying to Michael, I said, just go ahead and because he was saying, he's not respecting me in this scene, the character of Worm. I said, well, then beat him up, hit him.
Yeah.
and then I think you might have.
And don't tell Edward.
And don't tell Edward. And then I think you might have said, are you going to let him hit me? And I said, yeah. It's just, it can give it great energy.
Wasn't it?
Yeah,
Chinatown.
Down in
Chinatown.
Yeah. See, I'm sorry, but that's just not Toronto,
No way.
It's just not the same.
Oh, it's great that we got to shoot this in New York.
Yeah, what a privilege.
Listen, I got it. No.
All these games that he rattles off now are real. At that time, you could have found all these games.
Look, there's a 3060 at the Chesterfield. There's
Chesterfield with the Mayfair.
Come on, there's the 4 a.m. in Woodside. There's the
I think
Greeks.
this is like one of the last days of shooting, right? I think
The last day.
Close, yeah.
Was it the last day?
Yeah, we have those pictures. It was the last
Yeah,
day.
I think this was Matt.
That's great. That was all one shot from the door.
Yeah.
Oh,
John, you did inserts after this, but this was the last day real shooting.
Yeah.
Hey, look! See my card boomerang on the outside.
This was awesome.
Here's a Union Hall.
I like these guys too. Look at this guy's.
Oh yeah. Well, the extras casting. I mean, you just
That's
don't get these
fantastic.
faces up in Canada. Unfortunately.
Look at this guy.
Well, it's great. I have to give credit to David Blaine, the magician, for card coaching me and doing on most of my hand stuff. But I pretty much copied Ricky Jay's card boomeranging in this one. Did I get it in here?
You had it earlier.
You cut, John.
No, it was in
you
there.
got it on the wide shot.
You were in the wide
right.
shot at the
Okay.
beginning of the scene.
This is great. The
That was
cigar.
at Nell's. Remember this?
Yes.
At the downtown club, Nell's.
Wasn't the rap party there also?
Yeah.
I think it was.
In fact, it was low budget enough that I think it was right after this. I think it was actually 4 days before we wrapped because we had the good club, so we figured we might as well use it.
This was the very first thing after that one exterior. This is the first dialogue scene that was shot in the movie.
Oh yeah, I remember this location. It was frightening. We rented this place, and I went into the kitchen, and there was like all the eggs and bacon were just laying out, unrefrigerated.
I remember the first time when we met Matt, we were in L.A. playing poker, and he had Ben Affleck come to play poker also, and Ben said, "God, that line in the script is brilliant." We said, "Oh, great, which?" He goes, "You fuck you."
1,500.
I like this guy too. The
Yeah, they were
the
great.
the guy at the golf course.
Sal Richards.
Yeah, he's great.
There's a lot more where that came from, Whites.
And the names of all the guys in this scene are my father's golfing buddies.
Yeah,
Take it down. I got shit. Look at this. I bluffed the big ringer.
the big ring guy.
Come on,
Hey,
get up,
listen,
we're out.
boys.
We're
Know
done.
what I
Come on.
said, anytime, any place, anywhere. Oh, by the
Yeah,
way,
yeah, yeah.
anybody.
Thanks a lot.
I think that
Yeah, that's
That was an ad-lib.
That's an ad lib right there.
buy some real jewelry.
What are you doing in there?
I didn't have it.
Oh, you didn't have it? What does that mean you didn't have it? Since when do you have to have
See,
it?
what I love is these kind of like scenes between the two of you guys where it's just
He was gonna bluff at the wrong pot. I was gonna take.
it's just
You know what? We don't have time.
basically the cast
Okay?
and the
We don't have
script.
time for that shit. That guy was paper mache. You got to make strong moves.
Hey, the move was folding. I can't lose what I don't put in the middle.
Jesus, you know what? Fuck all that, okay? Because we needed that pot.
I think the thing that
Oh, and I love this too because I think in the script it was like you were going to count it all out.
That's a great moment.
Nah, like you can just look at it and you know exactly how much money.
By
it is.
weight.
Yeah.
but wait, exactly.
I don't have time for a fucking nap.
No, we don't. That's all right. Come on. I know what you need.
Dave, this idea of the
shave.
The shave.
Yeah.
Oh, this is great. Yeah, I forgot half of this. And I remember Matt got this huge reaction to the.
He got a big rash.
Matt got a huge rash.
Well, it's like that 3-cent shave cream at this place.
Yeah, really.
I think
It's basically made of Cool Whip.
Yeah.
I think we probably started with some real shaving cream and
It just toasted Matt.
Yeah.
We always think that there's nothing quite as recuperative as a good straight razor shave when you're on a 36 or 48 hour.
You happen to get the two actors who have no need for a straight razor shave. like Matt and I have about a goatee between us.
Restorative. Yeah.
They come play right after they get their paychecks. It's
And in this game, I just want to give a shout out to a guy named Steve Grecken, who's a psychologist, social worker in upstate New York, who was the father of a friend of ours when we were in college. And he used to he quit his practice for 2 years to become a card player. It was sort of the first we'd ever heard of a guy really earning his living at cards, and probably was like the first germ of this idea. And Steve played in a game with cops from Albany and Binghamton the day they'd get their paycheck. And we always thought it was just insane to do. And we had him come and watch when we were filming the scene where you guys get the shit kicked out of you.
You know, I think that one of the things I always liked about this whole script in general, I think we talked about it like the first time we met was John and I did, was that to me it's like, yeah, I mean it's a great milieu film, and there hadn't really been a card movie in a long time, so there was a lot of great dialogue that was, like John was saying, in a vernacular that was just totally, I felt like, man, I haven't seen this in a long time, so that's all cool. But at the core of it, it's also pretty much about something I believe in, which is that it's really about risk, and it's about the idea that there is no big upside without going through a zone of risk.
Mhm.
And in that sense, to me, it's like, I think it's a metaphor for anything, for life, but certainly for like people in creative life or anything like that. It's like this is all about a guy coming to grips with the fact that
willing to take chances.
Yeah, you can't really, you're never going to basically have your big dream come true unless you cross a zone of being willing to drop it all.
Yeah, in some respects, the overall story is quite familiar, but when, what's kind of, great about it is that it's put into this world of poker. Because you've seen other sports movies where, or movies where people are challenged and they accomplish things, but it's rarely ever done with something that's kind of questionable, like playing cards.
Yeah.
Hey, Edward, people often ask about your process, and I know you don't talk about it too much, but I think a key to why your improvs work is what you just said, your understanding of the movie and of the subtext of the movie. You bring that to your performances, and I don't think that most actors do necessarily bring a thematic, the sort of understanding of the thematic underpinnings the way that you do. And on this movie, it was enormous. It's why the ad-libs don't seem out of character or out of place or like borschte. It's because they come from a place of understanding the material. And I've heard you talk about a lot of the movies on which you've worked, and I think you go into them thinking about that stuff, right?
Yeah, sure. I mean, I think that, actually, Matt and I talked about this a little on this movie because people, there's a lot of romance, I think. There's a lot of romantic notions of like the purest kind of acting as being totally intuitive, totally, sort of live in the moment or things like that. And all that's true, I think, ultimately, when you're actually working. You want to clear your head and be intuitive or impulsive or whatever you want to call it. But I think it's a total sort of romantic fallacy about really great actors that they shouldn't be looking. They shouldn't be dramatists also, that they shouldn't be looking at the piece that they're working on from the outside with a director, with writers, and understanding it on a whatever you want to call it,
more global level.
Yeah, a dramaturgical level or universal level, because otherwise you're not all getting in sync on what's this movie actually about. What's this story about, I should say, and what are the characters' goals, and how does that serve the piece?
Well, as a director, it's great when you work with actors that understand their part in the overall picture and can step aside from it in a way and look at a film and have a sense of where it has to go in terms of the overall drama.
I was in Morocco working on something, and I told you I saw Red Rock West on
it's a good title, isn't it?
Red Rock West on French TV, and I was watching it, and what's really interesting is it was in French, but you could watch the movie, and there's this moment early on in the picture where Nick Cage, he has his money and he hits the guy.
Right.
He hits the guy, and it's this moment where he sits there and thinks, am I going to go back or am I not? And right there, like, that's the whole character.
Right.
That's really in a lot of ways what that whole movie's about is he fundamentally a good guy or is he fundamentally a bad guy?
Right.
And I hadn't even really, I hadn't seen that movie in a while, and there's always those things. And I think if an actor, if you can't look at a moment like that and locate what it means in terms of
overall story,
the story, then how are you going to really infuse it with what it's really about?
It's kind of, like even this scene here, it's great how these guys are so desperate and they're drawn to, where are they going to go play? With a bunch of cops. I mean, it's just sort of like so twisted. And then he comes, and I love what Matt was doing there where, he hears your name and, he hears you coming in the background and he just has this sick feeling on it.
And John, you got to credit yourself, man, that push-in that you do there as you sort of, you let Matt be very still in doing what he's doing, and you let it show by just doing that slow push-in on his face.
Well, it's also, like watching the rehearsal and seeing what Matt's doing and knowing, that's the moment that you want to, now here, this moment here, this is a room full of guys that are just waiting for this moment. Do you remember?
They just want to spend their lives wanting to kick someone's ass, John?
Well, I remember shooting this and just having to it's like really just like having to yell cut and run in and like pull these guys off the ground. It was like, look at this. I mean, they're just waiting for the, and it gets a little.
And I like the ranking cop not getting involved. He just sort of like stands back. Oh, these are angry civil servants. I don't think it's a bit over.
I think what's fun about doing this with Matt too is like when you talk about all those things thematically, what's the movie really about and everything. To do Mike McDermott in this movie, you gotta like really, his character's constantly balancing between very kind of nuanced shades of conflict, right. And it's like I feel like Matt's really good at like layering in, in a way between Worm and Mike. Mike's the straight man, and sometimes like that's. It's very delicate. It's very delicate.
It was a hard. I know it was a hard shoot for Matt. Just watching him every day, and every day it would be Matt was there like every day, and then there would be the, Edward, there would be the Edward Norton week, and then and then there'd be the John Turturro day, and then there'd be and Matt was kind of this, had to kind of constantly sort of carry it. And also
get his hair frosted regularly,
but also like all these like really dynamic kind of personalities coming into the movie every day.
Well, yeah. Also, he is the best player. Really, he has to hide his emotions all the time.
He's the best card player.
That's I love the I love the subtlety of everybody's performance.
Yeah, that's what I really like about what Matt did here. He didn't
really, it's like a simmering teapot.
It's wound tight, and he didn't overcook any of it.
Or like this scene. I mean, just mechanically, this is like one of the big sort of dramatic scenes in the movie between these. It's the last time we see the two of you together, and talk about it. Just this is a location we went and looked at. It's great. We show up and we realize that it's on the end of the runway for the a private airport that is nearby. So now, as an actor, you're sitting there, you're trying to do this scene, and there's planes flying over constantly. Constantly, I'm thinking we're going to have to loop this entire scene. But you guys were so, you guys were so focused on this scene.
Did we have to loop a lot of it?
We didn't loop. We ended up not looping one line.
Wow.
But it would, talk about, I think we probably did. Like 14 takes.
We did, because I remember. Do you remember too that? And this was. I remember. I was so relieved that you didn't even hesitate. I remember doing a piece of this on my side, and then flipping around and doing Matt's side. And on Matt's side, we really dialed it in.
Right.
Suddenly, it went up to this level.
Right.
That it had not been in, and you were like, turn it around and get that again on the other side. Do you remember that?
Yeah. Well, because this.
Well, that's a big deal because of the time it takes.
Yeah.
I guess is the point you're making, right, Edward?
Yeah.
To change the
or
lighting.
Or just recognizing that, okay, that wasn't strictly our logistical plan, but we just kind of hit it, so.
I mean, from my standpoint, one of the things that was really kind of exciting about doing this movie is I wasn't exactly the kind of director that people thought, let's have him do.
Edward's face. Look at what the last moment of the movie. Man, that's really
great.
Great, nonverbal.
Call or raise the bet.
I was just saying, people don't really think of me as being a director that does a lot of, long dialogue scenes, and it was very, for me, very exciting to be able to do, it really for a lot of this movie, it's all about performance, it's the script and it's the performance, and I love what you guys did in the movie.
Nah.
This ice cream thing is awesome. Another Rispoli touch.
And another great underwear
too,
another great underwear ensemble.
I remember Rispoli asking for this, John. He was like, "You guys think that maybe I could have some ice cream in this scene?"
Oh no, yeah. And he wanted to wear a Chinese robe, I think.
And he let the hookers have their Coke too, which was like, that's really big of you, John.
And the rated R for some drug use, that's it.
Is it really?
Yeah.
I remember actually, drug use. We did a scene here where one of these girls was topless, and it was just too much. I think we ended up using the television version.
Yeah, that's probably true.
Well, I think we all wanted the shirts off, but then it kind of was a distraction. You kind of wanted to focus in on what's going on here.
I'm not the one working with a partner here.
You want to take it up with KGB? You go right ahead. Otherwise, you got one day, this will feel like a Swedish massage.
Now this scene, I remember this one we really, it was
in Brooklyn.
Was this the original location?
No, we
Something
came up with
changed?
this. You guys asked us. We were in the Chesterfield, the Teddy KGB's place, and you came up to us and said we need to change the location. And we said, well, they talk about the steam bath, even though that's out of the movie earlier. And we said, let's put it in a steam bath. And Turturro loved that idea.
And I think
this is so New York. I mean, this is
This
truly New
parlor,
York
I think,
as
was
you can get.
operating. They were selling other services beyond just the steam bath at this place. I think it's been closed down.
Yeah, we were outside, and this kid came up to us, and he said, "What are you all filming in the whorehouse?"
Really?
Yeah.
This is like one of those scenes where, like a number of scenes with Matt and Edward, where they'd start the scene and then you just see them slowly sort of like dial the scene in, like the one in the basketball with the basketball and the one in the parking lot, and this scene here. These are these kind of big scenes, these big moments in the story that have to work. And I remember doing the scene over and over and over again, and there's a little moment here where they walk over here to the next beat. Finally, it just, both John and Matt just nailed it. Because he has to kind of sell this, and it really was critical because he kind of has to sell this, this dream of what poker is really like to him.
Yeah.
And it goes into this flashback.
Showing you the playbook I put together off my own beats. That wasn't enough for you.
Listen, this is one time I don't need you to tell me how I fucked up.
And John brings such humanity to this scene.
And kind of a dignity.
He really does, where the character could be, he's basically saying no to your hero and saying that he's content to be a small-timer in a way.
Yeah.
Though, and yet he brings, you understand his point of view. You think he might be right.
That's fucking great.
And that's in John's performance and in what he does in his eyes.
Some Vegas pipe dream?
Hey, I took a risk. You see all the angles. You never have the fucking stones to play one.
Stones? You little punk. I'm not playing for the thrill of fucking
Little punk.
That was before she was a married woman.
Clearly.
You little punk. Yeah, that's a great line.
I'm sure Joey Knish has a lot of respect for the institution of marriage now and would turn down the blowjob from Christy Turlington.
I'm sure.
You want me to call some people? Try and buy you some time, I will. Place to stay or the truck? No problem. But about the money, I gotta do this. I gotta say no.
It's fine.
It's really interesting when this movie rolled out. One of the first, how whenever, I don't know if you ever feel this, when a movie comes out, it has a certain kind of immediate life, and then it has these kind of waves of its life, and a lot of times you feel different. It hit different demographics at different times.
Right.
And like in the immediate aftermath of this movie, I would be on planes and like all the rap stars would come up to me and go, "I love that movie." You know what I mean? And I was like, now why is this movie like hitting so hard with like the hip hop guys? And I think I don't know. I think it's because of what we were talking about, like that thing about risk and taking your shot and all this stuff. But it was really interesting.
Now, this.
Go ahead.
No, I was just going to say that this thing that Matt talks about playing against Johnny Chan, one night when we were researching this, we were down in Atlantic City. I say researching because what I really mean is when I was losing a lot of money playing cards. And I sat down at the table with Phil Hellmuth, who is, like Johnny Chan on that level. I didn't beat him in a hand, but I played 3 hands at these stakes with him and just thought it'd be incredible to be able to have put a move on him. But I was too scared, unlike the character.
I don't care about the money. I'm just going to
I remember shooting this scene with Johnny Chan, and when we first rehearsed it, I was sitting right behind Matt, just to kind of like see what. So I, just sitting right over his shoulder, like the camera, kind of, so I could see Johnny Chan's eyes, and I remember him. It was like the rehearsal, so of course we didn't get it on film, but it was amazing. Just the way Johnny Chan looked at Matt. It was probably one of my favorite experiences on anything on any movie set.
It looks right through him.
And then when the take was over, Matt turned around and looked at me and he said, "That was awesome." It was so. Well, I mean, because it's hard to describe that somebody could look at you like that.
Well, John, that's what I was going to say. When I sat with Phil Hellmuth, who is a knight, we all have met him since and played poker with him. He's a great guy, but at this point, he didn't know me. It's like he could look right into my soul. He knew in my mind.
It's like a cyborg or a reptile or something, just like looking right.
I mean, people talk about that judges scene when earlier in the movie when Matt reads everybody's hands as being. People have always asked, "Could you really do that?" But I mean, Dave, we've seen Phil Hellmuth.
These guys can do it.
They just know.
Well, that's what I think in a way the movie, it grabs that quality, of which which hadn't really occurred to me that poker is this sort of mental exercise, this kind of and when I play Texas Hold'em, one of the great things about it is you can really watch. You can look for people's tells. Mm-hmm. You can, after you play a few hands, you can kind of get a sense of what people bet on, what they won't, and you can kind of, can start to kind of tell something about.
That was definitely the most That was definitely the defining learning experience of the movie for me was this whole notion of poker not being gambling.
Right.
The gambling is gambling, and poker is a game of skill in which the money is going to flow from the worst players to the better players always over time.
Right.
And to move for the first time up into whatever level of game it is for you at that moment, in which you are totally overwhelmed by the other people, is an incredible experience.
Right.
Because it's so thrilling and humbling at the same time. It's embarrassing and completely intoxicating.
Yes.
At the exact same moment.
And it can be expensive too.
Yeah, and that's an incredible feeling to realize how far behind the curve you are in a given set of calculations, psychological dynamics, all of it. And I think that's the thrill of poker is.
Well, yeah, when they show it, you're totally right, Edward. When they show it on TV, and now they're showing everybody's hands, it makes it really interesting to watch. But it makes everybody at home think they would have made a higher quality of decision.
Oh, right. Yeah, no.
Which, of course, the fact that these guys make such good decisions so much of the time without seeing the hole cards is unbelievable.
Yeah,
they're able to divine from your patterns, from the way you look.
Sometimes you do a movie. I mean, as an actor, the fun of any movie is that, like, there's always these new learning things. There's these new textures, and and it's always interesting. But then on some of them, you walk away with it a little bit, and some of them you don't to some degree. And this one, is definitely one of those things where, I mean, poker is not like a defining part of my life, but it's one of those things I'm totally glad I picked up on because it always comes up. It always comes up in one form or another. In friendly games and like charity things, whatever. And it's like, it's great to be able to kick the shit out of the average home game.
Right. The bluff or,
Yeah, or just because of like, Johnny Chan's like little tricks of the trade or something, it gives you that little leg up. And it was really fun too when Matt, remember when we were rehearsing over on 16th Street there in your offices, and we had those guys coaching us. They coached me and Matt on how to do a road ganging. Do you remember that?
Yeah.
We had the guys showing how to work partners.
Right.
And then Matt and I, Harvey and Bob Weinstein, set up a big game one night. We all played it, and Matt and I agreed we were going to try to play partners, which we did, and we totally cut the game up.
Right.
And we walked out from like the Essex House or wherever it was, and we walked around the corner like Mike and Worm, and we cut up our winnings, and split them up, and we were like, wow, that was great.
This was the one line Matt really didn't want to say in the movie, which is, I felt like Buckner walking back into Shea, which is a reference to Bill Buckner and the Red Sox losing once again to a New York team. And Matt, they still haven't won.
Let's see, what town is Matt from?
I think he is from Boston, right?
Yes,
and they still haven't won. Remember, he came up to us and he said, now listen, do I have to say Buckner walking back into Shea? And we went, in fact, the first time we said, yeah, you have to say that line and say it like you mean it. And he did.
I was born in Boston, and I can't.
Are you a Sox fan?
No, I'm an Orioles fan, but because I grew up near Baltimore. But But I can't even joke about Boston, even in Matt's titular presence. even in with the spirit of him in the room, because I know how much pain last year caused him.
My wife's from Boston, and yeah, it was painful.
Yeah, I remember Matt's not here, so maybe we try to share some of his stories. But I remember I wasn't around I wasn't there one of the first days that John Malkovich came, and as soon as I see Matt, I just go, "What was it like? What was it like?" You know, and he says, he goes, you wouldn't believe it, like this total hush descended on the set, like Malkovich is here, you know, and he says, and we're doing a take or two. He said the wildest thing, Edward. He goes, I'm doing a take or two with him, and he goes, you wouldn't have believed it. He was like stinking up the joint. He was totally unprepared. He wasn't doing his thing or something. Or he was doing a few takes, and he goes, and I'm looking around and going, does he think he's getting away with this? And Matt swears that right as he sort of had the thought of like, boy, that's not like, you know, that's not what up to snuff for Malkovich. He said that right as he had that thought, he turned, and that Malkovich was sort of looking at him out of the corner of his eye, and that he leaned across and went, I am such a terrible actor sometimes.
And then he dialed it up pretty good,
yeah, and then
John.
He dialed it up.
I remember, actually, I remember we were getting ready, you know, we had this, you know, the big card game here set up, and I remember there was a shot where the camera was kind of in position, and I thought, well, you know, let's have John Malkovich do an insert. You know, he picks up the chip from here, and he sort of looked at where the camera was, and he's, you know, like, well, what's the shot? I said, well, it's, you know, picking up these chips, and so you'll see it. He comes down. He grabs the chips, but he brings his face down right to camera level and picks them up.
Yeah.
I was like, I mean, he had so, you know, it's like the little details of what John does in this scene, I just think are great.
Brian and David directed him in a movie that they wrote too, so they know better than anyone. But he's just one of those guys who he could have never played poker in his life, and he can sit at the table and make and come and look like he's the guy who knows more than anyone else in the room and still intimidate you.
Say it's true, Edward. When we directed him in Knockaround Guys, I don't know if you can do it. I haven't met any other actors who do this thing, but he'll say, what lens are you using? And he knows exactly the parameters. He knows exactly how far he can walk. Like if you're on a long shot, he knows exactly every sort of, you know, he could pace it off a 75 or 100 and know exactly, you know, what it is
No, I think he's like the actor's version of that line about Thomas Jefferson that, you know, he's, you know, what was the thing that Kennedy said about, you know, they had some great gathering at the White House of all these brilliant minds, and he said there hasn't been this much brain power in the room since Thomas Jefferson dined here alone, you know, and Malkovich is kind of like the actor's version of that. It's like you've got me and Matt and Turturro and everything, and it's like all, you know, you got Malkovich on the other side of the table, and things are evenly balanced. You know, you're like,
It's interesting, you know, Malkovich, people talk about him playing bad guys, but he fairly recently said to us, you know, people talk about this guy being a bad guy. And he says, why am I a bad guy? I lost a game of cards. That's all you see me do. I pay the guy his money, and he leaves. And I don't have anyone do anything to him. He said, why am I bad?
Of course, maybe we check with one other guy, see how he
I remember we had this whole room of clothes for when John came to look, you know, to kind of figure out what he was going to wear in the movie. And, you know, he picks this stuff out of this whole room, this like kind of bad jacket. I mean, I just you know, I love the wardrobe because I just think it, like, each character is kind of like unique in that respect.
Yeah. It's like the Russian Army training jacket from 1972 or something.
Fine by me. I'm going home.
Fine. It's a fucking joke anyway. After all, I am paying you with your
Like this
money.
moment too.
What'd you say?
Your money.
it's funny you were saying, you know how you were saying the thing about like wanting to sit behind Matt and watch Johnny, like to get a sense of just like what he was looking at. It's like I remember you on this set, which I remember a lot of times when you were trying to convey what you wanted to look at. You draw a ton, because I don't think people know you started. I mean, you were a storyboard artist, right? And I'd never. You used to sit there and just really quickly make sketches,
right?
Of like mini little storyboard things.
Yeah, because I mean, what I like to do is, I feel like the most important thing is that the actors believe what they're doing, and that's why, I don't really plan what I'm going to do ahead of time, and then I just quickly, once I kind of get a sense of what the cast is, where the direction it's going, then I just quickly kind of sketch it for scheduling purposes.
John, you never shot list in advance?
Not too much. On an action sequence, but I just find, you're always going to get something more. I mean, if you have these kind of actors, it's like, I'm going to tell John how to. This is the shot.
Yeah, there it is.
Yeah.
And yet things like
I'm
that.
I'm not going to come up with that.
But even that shot, John, that's like off grandma, cross chips low, and up on a face like that. I mean, so you don't have a. I mean, a movie like this, we didn't. This was a 45-day movie, so you were coming up with a lot of detail stuff, sort of on the spot. Then.
There's very few things in life that come very easy for me. That's one of them. I mean, the shot, to me, what it's all about is getting the scene to play right. And if you get that, what Matt's doing there and what John's doing, and that's what's interesting.
Check.
No picture, I tip you.
I like the way the light bulb's going on there. I think Matt's really he's so good and subtle in this.
Yeah.
And is this where he lays down the monster hand?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then the way John figures out what happened.
I must say also, I think this is really well edited. Scott Chestnut did a great job. I think he put this scene together after we shot it, and I think this whole sequence is like 14 minutes, and I don't think we changed one thing.
Huh. Originally in the script, we tell you what Matt's hand. We don't tell you what Matt's hand is till the very end.
Right.
Till the last moment when he shows it, and you felt really strongly. You shot his hand, and you felt really strongly that we should show it as early as possible. And you sort of talked to us about the difference between shock and suspense, which I think is key to your movies. Can you talk about that a little bit? I think that's interesting to people.
Well, it's the difference between suspense and surprise. If the audience knows what his hand is, they can get more involved. They're involved with Matt's dilemma, and if not, then it really just becomes surprise. So,
which in a way is a cheaper gimmick.
Yeah, well, that's what John was explaining to us.
Surprise will only get you so far. Suspense is much more. When you think about the movies that you like, they usually have more suspense.
Yeah.
Yeah, we were worried that if they knew, like the shot that's going to come up when you push in on Matt after the Malkovich, after the ace is flopped, that they wouldn't be worried about him because they'd know he won, but you knew they would still be somehow concerned. They'd be on his side more deeply if you showed the hand.
Our blood can't get rid of him.
I'm not going anywhere. I'm double the blind.
Okay.
If you do an internet search on what Teddy KGB has in this scene, you'll see thousands of like news groups, Google groups. You'll see thousands of posts of people speculating. And we've never told anyone what he has because we don't show it. And so let's none of us tell now.
Well,
there's also
I think that's uncool. So I'm going to say it was a.
You don't know. You likely.
I really like watching the way. We're not even really listening to the lines here. I'm just watching it physically. Like, I love the way Malkovich starts to sort of, I love the way he starts to get like when he not even the throwing of the Oreos, but the line before that where he just says, "The fuck you, lay that down."
Right,
you know what I mean? It's like he really, he doesn't like starting to have unsuspected variables come into it.
And also, if you've ever if you've ever played Texas Hold'em, and there is nothing more satisfying than holding, the wheel.
Right.
It is just what Matt's got right here. He's
the
got
nuts straight.
Yep.
The hand that can't be beaten. Yeah.
Yeah. There is nothing more satisfying.
And then
you got to jack the pot up
to get the guy all in. Yeah.
I'll try to tell it quickly, but my own war story about that sort of thing is that when we were doing this, Johnny Chan said something to me one time, which is that he said, and he'll probably kill me for saying it out loud, although these guys are all just like telling all their secrets these days. But
And Johnny's on the commentary track next to ours, Edward,
I know.
so I'm sure he said it.
By the way, if we had done this in the room with the poker players, you would have never heard anything from any of us.
But what was your point going to be?
My point was that Johnny told me one time that he really likes, especially if he's in the, on the button in the last seat in the bet cycle, he likes to, if he gets something like, pocket nines or even an 8-9 offsuit similar to what Matt has there, that sometimes he'll just, if no one looks like they've come in really strong, that he'll raise really big, just do a big position raise, and then just see if he catches a middle flop, because if he does, then people aren't going to make him for what he's on. They're going to think he raised big off aces or kings, and he's going to end up with, they're going to think he's staying on aces or kings, trying to fight him out against the middle flop, but in fact that he'll have, eights or nines or whatever. So I know that's not like revolutionary.
No, it's a great strategy. That comes from originally Doyle Brunson's book.
But it
was
was very interesting to me at the time, and so then when Matt and I played in the World Series, we both had a dramatic experience. Matt ended up getting busted out by Doyle Brunson with pocket kings, and Matt went all in after the flop with his kings, and Doyle had pocket aces,
right.
and they drew out, and he went down. So that was pretty great.
Yeah.
But I was at a table with this guy named a couple big players, and one of them was this guy. I don't remember his whole name. It was something Surinder, and people call him Surrender.
Yeah, Surrender Singh.
Yeah, Surrender Singh. And Surrender Singh had been playing aces and fours and aces and eights and things like that, and he kept flopping them at the end to show that he was, betting an ace. And I got pocket nines and in the last seat, and I just decided to play Johnny Chan's hand, so I raised big off pocket nines, and ended up catching a 9, 10, and a 4, or something like that. So now I have trip nines, and I figure I make Singh for ace 10, and now he's playing the tens with an ace.
Right.
And then the turn card comes, and and it's another 10. So now I make him on trip tens with an ace, but I've got the hidden boat, and I start literally going through the roof, thinking to myself, I'm gonna take Surinder Singh out of the tournament.
Right.
And I have that feeling of I've got the best possible hand on the board.
Right.
And I've got him dead to rights, and he doesn't think I'm this kind of a player.
Right.
And he's not going to make me for it, and I'm going to take this motherfucker out in front of everybody.
Right.
And we play it out, and a queen comes up, so it's nothing on the river. So I had more money than him at the time, and I shoved all in, and he shoved all in against me. And I flopped my boat, and the whole table, went crazy.
Right.
And he rolls 2 tens for 4 tens.
Oh man! And I think that's
you made that.
name.
Yeah. See, that's
and
that was,
for about 5 minutes, I couldn't feel the front of my face.
Right.
I was like, I had that taste of pennies in my mouth. It's like, that's. And he looked at me and he said, in a lifetime of tournament play, I've never gotten 4 of a kind on a big hand.
Wow.
And he, he complimented me and everything, but I don't even remember the hands that subsequently took me out of the tournament where I belonged.
It's that feeling, though. It's like you get in your mind what the other person has. You're thinking, ace 10, ace 10. That he's got to have an ace 10. And then after a while, it never occurs to you that he could possibly have
4 of a kind.
Yeah.
But whoever gets 4 of a kind,
exactly.
Yeah. You put a man on a hand, and that's just what you believe.
I thought it was pretty unfriendly, but it was a great story.
Hey, call me if you need a lawyer.
I will. And I will.
Great shot, John, that you hear when she closes the door. And she's on the inside of, this life, and he's on the outside.
It sounds better if you have a Russian accent. She's on the inside.
Have you made a movie in New York since this one?
No. I love New York as a movie set. It's great.
It does give you an awful lot to work with.
It's just so much, there.
So where you headed?
I'm going to Vegas.
Vegas, huh?
Yeah.
Good luck, man.
I think that's our. You know what? I think that's our dialogue editor.
Thanks.
Yeah, I think you're right.
Yeah, Val.
First prize at the World Series of Poker is $1 million. Does it have my name on it? I don't know, but I'm gonna find out.
Yeah, it's a great New York shot. There it is, John. Nicely done. And John, thanks for directing our first movie, man.
Thanks for taking care of us, John.
Thanks for having me.
And Edward.
Thanks for putting me in it.
Ted Demme.
Yeah, we should say that we lost two of our great collaborators on this movie, Teddy Demme and Jean-Yves Escoffier, much too early.
Yeah.
But they were both exceptionally great people to work with.
And someone who's still alive, actually, and thriving, Rob Pearson. But Tracy Falco, who's an associate producer, was actually, these kind of people never get mentioned, but as the Counting Crows are playing, she got the Counting Crows to give us the song, but more importantly, she really was working in Teddy's office and picked the script off a slush pile and gave it to him and said, we should try to make this movie. So I don't want to end this without mentioning and thanking Tracy. And if you hate the movie, you have Tracy to blame.
Yeah, it's fun. Sometimes you get, sometimes you have a frustrating experience making a movie, but it comes out really well. Sometimes you have a great time making a movie, but the end result somehow doesn't all come together. And then occasionally you get those ones that are just like, it's so much fun to do, you wouldn't even care how it came out, but then it comes out great. And that was definitely one of these for me.
Absolutely.
The whole thing just, the doing of it was such a groove,
Yeah,
it was a really fun groove. The funny thing is, you make movies, what do we make this movie for? Not to, we make
very much.
It's like 12 million bucks, right?
$14 million.
And this was to his credit, the kind of movie that not a lot of people at that time, other than Harvey Weinstein, could have put together for that price. If you look at having that cast, for that price, he was the kind of guy who knew you could build that off a script this strong, right? And if you put things together the right way, you could do it. So we didn't have the kind of pressure on us that sometimes you have when you got a lot of money pumped into something. But at the same time, that's the business we all work in. And I remember, when it came out, the sort of that weekend got blindsided by Rush Hour, I think it was, And so, it was, you couldn't lose on a movie with the budget we did it for, but it was in my, sort of path of learning in this business or anything, it was early on for me in the sense of going, shit, I guess, we didn't do as well as we wanted to do or whatever. Mm-hmm. But then when you have those first experiences where you watch something and you go, well, it's everything I wanted it to be. Right. I'm completely artistically, creatively, as a movie fan, I'm completely happy. It came out all the best that I hoped for. And then you watch it over time ripple out and become something that's a very staple kind of classic of its genre. People really enjoy it. You get people coming up, and then it frees you from that opening weekend mentality. Right. Once you experience the long-term experience of it, then it gives you a lot more confidence. Right. It gives you a lot more sense of freedom emotionally from those kind of business-related pressures.
It's satisfying to the amount of cable and DVD and video that movies like this have another life.
Yeah, they get a chance.
People always come up to me and say, "Gee, I really like the movie." It's like a small movie that has a kind of a great feel to it.
Yeah, it's going to take time to find its actual audience. You know, because the poker players, how often do they get to the movies?
like never.
How often did two guys who wrote a script in a basement get to see a movie that was put together of that quality? So, thank both of you guys.
Thank you guys.